later I
Yes.
realized that most of the attendees they work on AI, ML, or optimization or microgrid controls. So then
Yes. Yes.
last time I gave a talk in RIT in Maharashtra. So that time I gave a talk on machine learning applications in transient stability
Yes.
prediction.
So although we are having the blended kind of participants, some are also there from mechanical background also in
Oh,
this. So although they are used to try to catch up the things, but there might be some problem because we are having some sessions from the other like biomass and that kind of sessions are also there.
so your session will be helpful to them because that is mixture of
Yes, yes, yes.
mechanical and electrical.
Mm. Yes.
This is structural modeling part.
So I think uh, anyway, so I think I should start the proceeding. Please wait for a while. So a very good afternoon to all participants and respected Dr. Pratyasa Bhui sir, who is the expert for the session. Sir is basically presenting on transient stability production and control in presence of renewable energy systems. So I welcome Dr. Pratyasa Bhui here in this 5-day event on integration of renewable systems. I also welcome all the participants once again in the second session of the day. Uh, Basically, I want to inform all the participants about Dr. Pratyasa Bhoi sir. He has his PhD degree from IIT Delhi in the Department of Electrical Engineering in year 2006. Sir has also got the prestigious award POSOCO in year 2018 or 17 or 18. He has also got his postdoctoral fellowship from Texas A&M University, US, and he has a good research experience. Along with that, he has worked on some other projects also, which are associated with the Vikas Pal sir from Imperial College London, and along with that, Professor Senroy sir from IIT Delhi. And his research interest basically is there in the power system, and in mainly that in the some kind of stability analysis. So with this rich academic background and research background, I would like to invite Dr. Pratyasa Bhui sir. So please present yourself. So thank you, Dr. Pratyasa Bhui sir. Please
Uh, Thank you.
share. Okay, I'm just stop sharing, and then you can please share your screen and present.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Prajapat, for the introduction and also for inviting me to this FDP. So we did PhD together, so we are friends there, and after a long time we are meeting here. So I'll share the slides now. So is the screen visible?
Yeah, yes, sir. It is visible clearly, but it has gone, sir. Sir, you are not audible. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. So I got
Yes,
disconnected. I'll share the
yes.
screen now.
Okay, okay.
So you can see the screen, right?
Yes, it is visible, sir.
Okay, okay, thank you. So there are some network issues here.
Okay. Yes, visible, sir. It is visible.
Okay. So today we'll discuss artificial intelligence applications to power system stability studies. So we'll discuss mostly two things: transient stability prediction after a disturbance, and also dynamic security prediction. So suppose the power system is operating normally without any disturbance, but what happens?
Pratyasa, sir, are you there? Actually, you are not audible. So, participants, please be here. I call Dr. Pratyasa Bhoi, sir, and definitely will join. Maybe there is some problem of connectivity there. Yeah. So, participants, please be here. He is trying from other device actually. So actually, some of the participant has written that they have left that attendance link because of some connectivity issue. So I am here resending the that attendance link for the morning session that was by Professor Nishant Kumar. So I'm once again copy and pasting that link to the chat box. If any one of you have left the attendance during the first session of the day, then they can record their attendance here. So I have posted the attendance link that is about that is for the first session that was in today's morning. So the link is here. You can record your attendance. If any one of you are here in the meeting and have left this link because of some connectivity issue, they may record their attendance. So one more thing which I would like to request all the participants, please be there in each and every session, because you might be knowing that there must be the attendance of about 80% throughout the course, so to get the certificate from the CICTE.
Ganesh, am I audible?
Yes, yes, it is audible, sir.
Okay.
Yes, your screen is also visible.
Okay. Okay, so we'll discuss artificial intelligence applications to power system stability studies. So we'll discuss decision tree assisted prediction of transient stability after a disturbance. And so here we'll discuss both stable or unstable classification and also dynamic signature prediction. So how the system will behave if it is unstable event. Okay. And we'll also discuss decision tree assisted dynamic security assessment. So suppose the system is operating normally, but if there is a fault, so what will happen? So and if it is unstable, so we have to take corrective actions. So how to take a corrective actions? Okay. So before going into AI applications to stability studies, so let's discuss some basics first. So traditionally, how we detect unstable events. So suppose you have a large power system. So you have a large power system. So you have many generators. And suppose after a fault, so one area is separating out from the other area. So this area is going to be out of step with respect to this area. So these two areas we can represent with two single machines. You can see it here. So two sources. So after a fault, if it is a stable fault, so the oscillations or the angle difference, it will die out after a certain time. If it is unstable fault, if the system becomes unstable, you will see that the angle difference increases like this. Now in traditional power system, how do we detect this unstable case? So if you have a relay here, it can measure the, say suppose it is a distance relay. So it can measure the distance here, impedance relay. So you can see that this is VA by, this is VA by IL. Okay, that it measures the distance. Now this VA, or the voltage at the A bus A, this is equals to your source voltage minus this drop. Okay, ES minus IL into ZS divided by the current, where current is, so ES this voltage minus this voltage, so source voltage minus receiving end voltage divided by the total impedance. So this gives you the current. Okay, so this voltage difference divided by current impedance. Now this impedance has a characteristics like this. If the angle difference is delta, so source angle is, suppose you can see delta, receiving end angle is 0, so the angle difference is delta. As the angle difference changes, so you can see that we can see the variation in the impedance measured as a function of delta. So if it is a stable swing, it will be like this. So initially the measured impedance will be high. It is primarily resistance because of load resistance, and then if it is stable, so it will go in this like this. If it is unstable case, the impedance seen by this distance relay will be like this. So this is your unstable swing.
Pratyasa sir, am I audible? Actually, your voice is not hearing audible. Am I audible, sir? I think you have muted yourself.
Is it audible now?
Yes, yes. Okay, you are doing through this name Sudhanshu Sukla. Am I
Yes,
right, sir?
yes.
Okay, okay, all right, all right, all right. Thank you. Please be ahead.
So shall I start from the first slide itself? Hello?
No, it's okay, sir. You can continue there from because I have muted because of I was thinking that that is something different.
Okay. So you can see that this distance measured by this relay is a function of delta. So this delta is the angle difference between the source and end and receiving end. For unstable case, this distance trajectory is like this. For stable case, the distance trajectory is like this. Okay. Now it is very easy to classify if you put two blinders here. So once it crosses this blinder, so you can put a timer within certain amount of time, it will cross the another blinder here, right? So during fault also it can enter here. So now we have to classify fault and this unstable swing. So this is done using R and R dot scheme. So generally for fault it will be very fast, and for unstable swing it will be slower than that. So for R and R dot scheme, you can see that for stable swing, it is like this. And for stable swing, it is like this. And for unstable swing, your R and R dot. So R is the resistance, real part of the impedance seen by the relay. So this is R. And then the time derivative of this resistance is R dot here. So if you plot this is your stable case and this is your unstable case. Okay, so you can put a threshold to identify stable and unstable case, and if it is unstable case, you can separate the two areas. So if you have one area separating from another area, suppose this is the out of step generator, and this is your stable area, so you can separate out these two areas. That is basically islanding. Okay, now nowadays, because of renewable penetration, so as the inertias are changing, so your R dot time derivative of this resistance will also change, because as the inertia changes, so your oscillations frequency will change, and because of that you will get this change in R dot. So there are many difficulties to set a proper threshold now. So we can use the machine learning tools to identify whether the fault will be stable or unstable. So after a fault, whether the system will remain stable or unstable. Now, how do we select features in the artificial intelligence or machine learning tools? It needs some features. So some measurement features you will give, and then it will give you stability and unstable, stable and unstable status. So here you can see that this is a single machine. In fact, this is also basics. It is required to understand how we can use AI/ML tools in transient stability predictions. So here it is. You can see that there is a SMIB case. So if you have a two machine systems or two area system, one area is out. Getting out of step from the other area. So you can represent with a generators, and from two machine system you can represent with a single machine infinite bus equivalent. Okay, now we are familiar with this equilibrium criteria. Now you can see that this is your P delta curve pre-fault. Okay, and initially your mechanical power or electrical power is this one, PM. Initial angle is delta. If there is a fault on the middle of the line, so you can see that during fault your P delta curve reduces to this. So mechanical power is this and electrical power is this less, so the generator rotor accelerates. So this is your accelerating zone. Okay, and similarly, once you clear the fault, your P delta curve changes here. So this is your electrical power is more than mechanical power, so this is your unstable case. Decelerating area. Okay, now if A1 is more than A2, it becomes unstable. A1 is less than A2, it is stable, and A1 equals to A2, this is marginally stable. Now, how is it relevant with the feature selection with AI/ML tools? Now, how do we know that A1 will be better than A2 or not? So this A1 can be characterized, you can see here, this mechanical power here, and this electrical power during fault, and this angle difference. So this is, so three things determine this area A1. So electrical power pre-fault, and during fault the average electrical power, and this angle difference delta CR minus delta 0. So that is that depends on the fault clearing time. Okay, similarly, if you see this area A2, this depends on couple of factors. So one is your this electrical power after clearing the fault. Okay, so post fault electrical power, and then of course this mechanical power, that is the bottom part. So electrical power pre-fault, and that's all. Now this electrical power after creating the after clearing the fault, So this depends on voltages as well, right? So similarly, we can select voltage and angles that also determine this pre-fault operating point as well as this post-fault operating point. Now, so these are the features that are used in machine learning tools: electrical power and voltage and angles, pre-fault and post-fault. And during fault, we need uh, the average electrical power, and sometimes we also use average acceleration or kinetic energy. So not all the features are used, so you can use a subset of them, because generally, suppose if you use electrical power and you don't need to use voltage and angle, right? So you'll get same information even if you use only electrical power. So I'll give one example of decision tree based transient stability prediction. So the features used are electrical power of the generators before fault. So you can see that this feature. Okay. So during fault, your kinetic energy and average acceleration. So kinetic energy and average acceleration. So when you use average acceleration, you can see that this during fault, your electrical power is also used. So basically, we are using the same informations post fault, I mean during fault electrical power, and that information is used already in the calculated average acceleration. Similarly, for post fault electrical power and fault clearing time, these informations are used in decision tree to predict transient stability. So how does it work, decision tree? So you will have lots of simulation data. So you will be given a power system operating data and loads and generation network information. So you will create many simulation, and then for each simulation, so you will calculate these features. And finally, after simulation, you will see whether it is stable or unstable case. So you will have number of predictors, and finally you will identify whether it is a stable or unstable case. So similarly, you will change the operating point, and or you will create another fault and check. You will calculate these features, and finally you will see whether it is unstable or select. I mean stable point. Okay, so you will create this database. So you will do thousands of simulation, and we'll have this database. Okay, and then so you can use this software, so this C 4.5 or 5.0 or CART software. So it will give you a decision tree like this. So it's a if else kind of structure, you can see. So one feature, if it is greater than Ti, so you will move in this direction. If it is no, so you will move in this directions. And finally, at the terminal node, you will get whether it is stable or unstable. Now, if you have this decision tree, then in the real time, if you get some measurements, so you can calculate these features, and then these features will be used in this decision tree, and it will give you the status of the stability status of the power system, whether it will be stable or unstable. Now, it was tested in 3 machine system. So there are 513 simulation cases, and stable was 410, unstable was 103 events. Loads were changed from 50% to 125%, and clearing time was changed from 10 milliseconds to 150 millisecond. Okay, so total 513 events were simulated, and a decision tree was trained. Now, if you use only two features, kinetic energy and this average acceleration during fault, you can see that you can very easily classify this. So this is your unstable and this is your stable. But in this zone, it is difficult to classify. That's why using two features only, it will be difficult. It will be very difficult to classify. So that's why you need to use multiple features, and then will be able to train a decision tree properly. So this is the structure of a trained decision tree, you can see. So if kinetic energy is greater than 4.389, So it will move in this direction. So then if the kinetic energy is more than 4.884, so it becomes unstable. So similarly, you can calculate this kinetic energy or post-fault electrical power or mechanical power. Similarly, average acceleration during fault. So all these, based on all these features, you can finally come to know whether it will be unstable case or stable case. Okay. Now we can see the test result. So training and testing data are different. So you can see the accuracy when all these 5 features are used: kinetic energy, average acceleration, mechanical power, electrical power after clearing the fault, and fault clearing time. The accuracy is around 99.61%. Only 2 key fault cases were wrongly classified. Now, so far we discussed only about a stable and unstable classification. So it just gives you yes and no kind of answer. It doesn't give you how the system will behave after the fault clearing. So which generators are going to be unstable. So basically we don't have any information about the dynamic signatures. So, but if we know that which generators are going to be unstable or how the system behaves after clearing the fault, it will be easier to take control actions. So for example, if you have many generators in a power system, so suppose after a fault, these 4 group of generators, they become unstable from the rest of the system. So you can either split the area into 2, or maybe you can do some control actions here. You can take some generator outage, or maybe fast valving, some control actions you can take here. Or sometimes it can be split into 3 areas, or you have to take control actions at multiple places. So that you can decide only if you know what will be the system response after clearing the fault, right? So we need to know how the system behaves. So this is a 2-stage process. So first stage is typically binary classification, or only stable or unstable classification. In the second stage, it is a multi-class classification. We need to know how the generators will behave. So suppose we simulate for around 20 seconds. That is sufficient and long enough to determine transient stability. So at 20 seconds, how the generator rotor angles are clamped. So sometimes suppose generator 1 and 2, they become unstable from the rest. So you will see that angle of these 2 will be much higher than the other generator angles. Okay. So at this, after 20 seconds in the simulation data, what we can do, we can classify so we can cluster the generators into several groups. Okay. So we can use fuzzy Siemens cluster, or hierarchical clustering, or Euclidean distance based clustering. So we'll group these generators, we'll form different groups. Now maximum angle difference between 2 generator angles is 360 degree in each group. So within a group, your maximum angle difference is 360 degree. Okay. So you may have only one group, that is stable case. For unstable case, you have minimum 2 groups, and it can be more than 2 as well. Okay. And we can have decision tree or multi-class SBA to identify, for this multi-class classification. So this stage process, as we discussed. So first, in the offline stage, you create simulation data, lots of simulation data, and then you have 2 decision tree. One is your binary classification, stable and unstable. So if it is unstable case, so only for the unstable cases we can do this multi-class classification to identify the generator behavior. Okay. So we'll cluster in the generator groups into we'll form different groups of the generators, and we'll have multi-class classification model. So it can be decision tree, or ASVM, or other machine learning tools. Now in the real time, if you have PMU data, so it can give you the stability status based on this binary classification. If it is unstable, then based on this multi-class classification, we can identify which generators are going to be unstable, or how many groups are there in the power system. Maybe 3 groups, or maybe 2-3 generators in one group, some groups in what, some generators in the second group, some generators in the third group. And each group, the angle difference between two generators is maximum 360 degree. Okay. So this information will be useful to take a proper control action. So this is a 16 machine system, you can see. So more than 7,000 events were simulated, and mean fault duration was 13 cycles. That is relatively longer, but it was mostly a stable system, so to get sufficient number of unstable events, the fault duration was taken little bit longer, 13 cycles. And simulation duration was 20 seconds. So to capture the dynamic behavior of the system after fault clearing. And the predictors, so suppose the generator angles are like this. Okay. Now this is when the fault has occurred. And after the fault, so at every cycle, one cycle in 60 Hz system is around 0.0167 second. Okay, so every cycle, or every 0.016 second, 10167 second, you have one data. So you can see that if you take 10 cycle of data, so you take only 10 cycle of data. Okay, so this is the data you use, and based on that you will be predicting the dynamic behavior till 20 seconds. Okay, so if you use 10 cycles of data, and each cycle you have 0.016 seconds, so total time duration is 0.16 seconds. So 1.16 second of data you are using, and that based on that you are predicting 20 seconds of signature. Okay, now we have used 15 predictors, so 15 features we have used, maybe some generator angles or speeds or line power flows or bus angles. So total predictors is 15 into the number of data points, time instance. So there are 10 time instance we have taken, or 10 cycle data. So each cycle we have taken one time. So there are total 15 predictions. So 150 number of features or predictors are being used in this decision tree. So if it is a 60 cycle, you can see that this is 1 second of data, and total number of predictors is 15 into 60. So total 900 predictors. So basically each data points is like one predictor here. And so if it is generator rotor angle, so you get for 10 cycle, you get 10 data points or 10 predictors. Similarly, if it is generator suppose speed, so you will get another 10. So similarly, you will have 15 predictors are used in this work. So you get 15 into 10. So total 150 predictors. Now the accuracy depends on how much data you are using. So if you are using only short duration data, your accuracy will be low. If you use long duration data, of course your accuracy will be higher. So if it is only 10 cycle of data, you can see that total classification accuracy is around 99%. But for unstable cases, your accuracy is around 96%. As you increase the fault duration, let's say to 20 cycles, or around 0.3 seconds, your accuracy for unstable cases is around 97, and overall accuracy is around 99%. But you know that this is high enough, but prediction of generator groups, that is for the unstable cases, how many generator groups will be there, and in each group which generators will be there. So that classification is relatively difficult. The reason is you may not have sufficient number of training data set, okay? Because unstable cases are number of unstable cases are low, so you may not have sufficient number of training data sets. That's why accuracy is little bit low. So you can see that using boosting technique, your accuracy is around 89% using 10 cycles of data, and using 20 cycles of data, it is around 90%. Now, we have seen that if you want to take control actions for transient stability, so you have to take control action very fast. So typically, the system becomes unstable after 1 to 2 seconds, and you have to take control actions maybe less than before 0.5 seconds. Okay, so as fast you can I mean, as soon as you can take the control actions, so you have better chance of making it stable. So how to predict the dynamic signature very fast? So we can use features from energy function, transient energy function. So this is like your equal area criteria in multi-meshing case. Equal area criteria is for SMIV. So if you study the multi-meshing equivalent of this, that is your transient energy functions. So if you calculate kinetic energy and system potential energy, so you just need one instant of data, just like equal area criteria. To understand whether it will be stable or unstable, you just need one instant of data, right? So you don't need to simulate it. So similarly, in transient energy function, just after fault clearing, if you know the network status and you can calculate the uh, potential energy, you can also calculate the kinetic energy. So you can actually tell whether it will be stable or unstable, just one time instant data. So several features from transient energy functions are used in this case. So energy margin, so that is the uh, if you increase the energy by that, so it becomes unstable. Then you have normalized kinetic energy. So generator kinetic energy divided by sum of all the kinetic energy. So this gives you normalized kinetic energy, basically distribution of kinetic energy among different generators. Then total kinetic energy, then acceleration of the generators and rotor angles. So these features are used for fast prediction of transient stability. So here you can see that when we use energy margin, kinetic energy, and total kinetic energy and acceleration, so you just need one time instant of data, and your accuracy is 90%, and that is more than so if you take this case or this case, so if you use 250 milliseconds of data in the traditional method, your accuracy becomes higher than 90%. In this, if you use energy function here, only one time instant of data can give you the same accuracy. So basically, you can predict stability status very fast. So far what we have discussed is how to predict stability after a fault occurs, or how to predict the dynamic signatures of the system, how the system will behave after a fault occurs. Now there is something called dynamic security. So suppose the system is operating normally, if there is a fault, uh, will the system remains stable? So that is so that for to know that we do dynamic security studies. So here there are two objectives: to predict dynamic security before any fault occurs, you have to check the steady state data and predict whether it will be secured or not secured. If it is not secured, so you have to decide proper control actions. So in this case, there are two decision trees are used: observation decision tree and prevention decision tree. So this is ODT and the next one is PDT. So this function of this observation decision tree is just to predict whether it will be secured or not secured. In the prevention decision tree, it decides the control actions or the corrective actions to make it secure. Okay. Now here also you have to first do simulations and generate the offline decision tree. Okay. So you have the load and generation forecast, and based on that you do many simulation cases and you build a decision tree. So here you can see that so there are n number of operating conditions based on loads and generation forecast, and you create a database of simulation database of for these operating condition, and then you build a decision tree, observation decision tree and prevention decision tree. So this part is your offline part. So in case of online part, you can see that you get online measurements, and then these online measurements are fed to the observation decision tree. So it decides whether the system will remain stable after a fault or not. Okay, if a fault occurs, whether the system will remain stable or not. So if it predicts that it will become unstable, then the measurements are sent to prevention decision tree. Now it decides a control actions. Now if it takes a control actions, for generation rescheduling or load shedding, something like that, so it will change the power system online measurements, like your power flow will change, your phase angles of the buses will change, and then again these updated measurements will be given to this observation decision tree. Okay, so until the observation decision tree tells that it will be stable, so till then your prevention decision tree will take control actions. Now for offline database generation, important sampling is used. What it means is that generally you generate operating point randomly by changing the loads or generation within plus minus 10%, 20%, something like that. In case of, so these are the operating points. You can see that it is uniform. So if it is important sampling, so you can see that this is your decision boundary. So in this case it is unstable, in this case it is stable. So near the decision boundary you create more and more data, so that your machine learning tool or the decision tree, it is more accurate. See, if it is here, operating point is here, it is easy to classify that it is stable. If it is here, it is easy to classify it is unstable. But if it is close to this boundary, it becomes difficult. So that's why we need to generate more and more data near this boundary. So this is a schematic representation of the entire work here. So you can see that this is the power system. Okay, so you have offline data of the power system, generators, networks, everything. So you have forecast of the loads and generation, and unit commitment, load forecast, weather forecast, topology, etc. So based on that, you do of simulation and create two decision trees. Now there is something called observable variables. So you can measure. So you can measure generator power, active power, reactive power, angles, speeds. Similarly, for the network, you can measure line power flow, bus voltage, bus angles. Out of that, only few are controllable variables. So you have, this is your observable variables. So only few is controllable variables. So controllable variables means you can control those variables explicitly. So this observable variables, it can be generator, say P, Q, or terminal voltage VT, or even speed in the, or line power flows. So you have bus voltage, angles, or the line power flows. Okay. In the controllable variables, you can only control few variables here. For example, you can only change generator active and reactive power. You can only change the loads active and reactive. So you can do load setting. Okay. So these are the only few variables that you can control. So this observable, so these controllable variables, this is subset of the observable variables. Okay, so accuracy for this control, I mean using this controllable variable is less. So that's why you can see that prevention decision tree, PDT, so efficiency to classify is lesser than efficiency of the observable decision tree. Okay, so this, based on the observable variables and controllable variables, you get decision tree, observation decision tree, that is ODT, and then prevention decision tree, this is PDT. Okay, now real-time measurements, online measurements are coming here through PMU. So PMU data, you can measure the power system real time. You can get the real-time measurements, and these measurements are given to this ODT, and if it is stable, no control actions. If it is unstable or not secured, so these online measurements are given to prevention decision tree. Now this prevention decision tree take control actions. So this prevention decision tree sends the control signal. Now you can do load setting. So what it will do, it will change the measurements here. So it's line power flow will change, your bus voltages will change. Based on that updated measurements, again the data will be sent to your observation decision tree. Now as the observation decision tree has higher accuracy, so it will classify whether it is a stable case or unstable case, whether it is a secured or not secured case. Okay, so until you reach a secured operating point, this PDT will continue to take control actions. So I'll give one example here. So this was implemented in Danish power system, and many generators were replaced with renewables, and renewable penetrations were increased from 20 to 40%. So you can see that this is your observation decision tree, and this is your prevention decision tree. So in the observation decision tree, so this is your Px2 y2 is less than 0.39. So it is, if it is less than, then it moves in this direction. Yes, so it is stable. If it is higher than that, so again you take Px1 y1. So Px1 y1 is one particular line power flow. Okay, So px2 means x2 y2 means some particular line power flow here. So you can, based on that, you can decide whether it is stable or unstable. Okay. So here you can check it, this observation decision tree. Your operating point is this one. This is your operating point. Okay. Now you can check that your px1 y1, it is less than 0.21, and px2 y2 it is higher than 0.39. So higher than 0.39. So as it is higher than 0.39 px2 y2, so we'll move in this direction, and then we'll check px. So px1 y1 it is less than minus 0.21. Okay. So here you can see it is greater than or less than. So it is not greater than, so we'll move in this direction, and you can see that case or insecure case. Okay. So as it is a, we have to take some control actions. So how to decide the control actions? Now control action will be decided by the prevention decision tree. Okay. Now in the prevention decision tree, your operating point is here. Okay. So we have to take a control action such that it moves in the secure zone. Okay. So how do we move into the secure? So this is insecure, and these are secured. Okay. So from this you can move in this, you can move in this direction, this direction, this direction, or even these directions. So where you should move? So you have to solve the optimization problem such that you do, so you minimize the total cost of the generation. You do some equality constant, so sum of all the generation change will be 0. That means somewhere you increase the generation, somewhere you reduce the generation, so that net generation and load balance is there. And it has to satisfy the inequality constants. The generator of a particular, output of a particular generation has to be within a certain plus minus range. But this range is not the generator actual limit. So this is you get from this prevention decision tree. What it means is that here you can see that your operating point has to be, so your power plant 2 power has to be less than, so G2 has to be less than 0.78. Similarly, your generator 1 power, so it is independent, so it can be anything. Generator 1 power, you can see this PDT. So your insecure case only changes when your G2 is higher than 0.78. Okay, so this is the only constraint, that your G2 should be less than 0.78. So now we have to solve the optimization problem that cost of generation will reduce. Sum of this PI has to be 0. So if you have only two controllable generators, so G1 plus G2 has to be 0. So this is delta G1 and delta G2. Okay, and this generator 2 should be less than 0.78. So generator 2 should be less than 0.78, and it should be higher than the generator own minimum limit, right? So if you solve this, minimize this objective function subjected to these two constraints, you will finally get what should be the value of G1 and G2, or power output of generator 1 and generator 2. Okay, so that you have got here. So you can see that this you get from the optimization A dashed. So you are moving from O dashed to A dashed here. And once you take that control action, so your power system variables will change, your line power flows will change. So in the observation decision tree, you shift from O to A only. So observation, as per observation decision tree, you can still see that it is insecure zone. So in the same direction, in the prevention decision tree, will take further control actions, and in observation decision tree moves from O to A to then again B. So it is still in the near the boundary. So we'll take further control actions from B dash to C here, and then you can see that we have moved to the secured zone. So finally, what we get is that your conventional power plant CPP1 in the power plant 1, your generation should be this much, and your generation 2 output should be this much. So this is the flow chart. So you get online measurements, you give to the observation decision tree. So it checks whether it is secured or unsecured. So if it is unsecured, so it goes to the prevention decision tree. So it determines the generation rescheduling, and then based on that it takes a control actions. This control actions is taken, and then it changes the online measurements, and again this observation decision tree checks whether it is unsecured or secured until you reach a secured operating point. So here there is one test case. So you can see that initially your operating point was this one, OC. Okay, and you can see that it is in the unsecured operating point. Okay, so after a fault, you can see that these red ones, generator 1 becomes unstable. So after a fault, this generator 1 becomes unstable. So this 0 means no control actions. So this red one, you can see so this is your generator 1 rotor angle, and it is unstable. Whereas for generator 2 and generator 3 and 4, it is stable. You can see here. So generator 2 and 3, so they are stable here. Okay, even without any control actions. But however, as generator 1 is unstable here, so we can say it is an insecure operating point. So you have to take a control actions. Now, once you take a control actions, now control actions you can take in the different directions. As we have discussed earlier as well, that control actions from as per the PDT, you can take in this direction, this direction, this direction, this directions, or this direction. So finally, you will get it from the optimization based on the constraints and objective function. So as generator cost curves and all those things are not there, so there are few cases that have been studied here. So suppose the prevention decision tree take control actions in 3-4 directions. So you can see that this is one direction, this is another direction, this is another direction, this is another direction. So this A, B and C are three different directions of control action. Okay, so you can see here this is trajectory A. So as you take control action, so 0 means no control actions, then 1 means you have taken some control actions, then you have increased the control action to reach point 2, then point 3, point 4, 5 and point 6. Here you can see once you cross this point 3, it becomes stable. Similarly, in the simulation case, you can see that once you take, so first two control actions, it is unstable. Once you reach point 3, it becomes a stable. So this is a stable operating point. So what it means is that this prevention decision tree can decide the control actions, and from observation decision tree, you can see whether the control action is successful or not, right? Until the observation decision tree gives you the prediction that it is secured, till then prevention decision tree will take control actions. So whether you take control actions in this direction or B or C, in all three cases you can see that they are able to stabilize the first generator, this conventional power plant one. So this generator they are able to stabilize. Okay, so now as per the research trends, so in AI/ML applications, in transient stability prediction and control. So now the question is, suppose you miss some PMU data. That is very common because you need PMU data from multiple locations. Now if you miss some PMU data, how will you handle that situation? So how will you use it in decision tree or other machine learning tools? Now second question is, in the supervised machine learning tools, so you need simulation data. Now that simulation data has to be generated from relevant operating condition. By relevant operating condition, what I means is that suppose you want to predict fault, stability status after a fault, but the offline data that you have generated, so that operating condition has to be relevant to the current operating condition. For example, you create a decision tree on US grid and use it in Indian grid, because that information on the US grid is not applicable here. Or the suppose you have done simulation in only peak load in summer and you cannot use it when you have minimum load during winter. So if the operating condition changes, so will you scrap the entire data, offline data, or can you use it somehow? So how to handle the changing operating condition? So that is a major question, because in power system nowadays, because of high penetration of renewables, uh, the operating condition changes continuously and sometimes it is uncertain. So whether your machine learning tool is can adapt to that changing operating condition or not. Some people have used this deep neural network or convolution neural network, uh, but accuracy is again we have to see whether it is uh, accuracy is sufficient or not. And another question is how to find the dynamic security boundary accurately. So suppose you have 4 machine system. Okay, now so dynamic security boundary means, suppose you have as per the decision tree you have found that this interface or inter-area power transfer limit cannot be more than 400 megawatts. So that is the limit you have found out. Now, if the operating condition changes, so this limit will continuously change. So how fast you can find this boundary, that is also another question, and how accurately you can find this dynamic security boundary. Now this is very relevant question because nowadays your electricity market is deregulated. So but they have, so suppose you, this is one area, this is another area. Okay, now this area 2 cannot buy infinite amount of power from area 1, right? So they have some security boundary that maximum it can transfer this much power, right? Now that limit is changing continuously based on the operating condition. Now your market should be uh, operating based on these constraints. Now, as the electricity markets are now almost in real time, so they have to satisfy these constraints. So this interface power transfer limit. So you have to calculate this interface power transfer limit very fast so that you can feed that information to electricity market. So how accurately and how fast you can, and how accurately you can calculate this interface power transfer limits. So these are some of the important uh, research trends in AI and ML applications in transient stability prediction and control, and also dynamic security prediction and corrective actions. Okay, so these are the some of the papers that I have followed. This is the first paper that we discussed, that decision tree, I mean using decision tree how to predict transient stability, and then dynamic signature prediction. So how the system will behave after fault is cleared. So maybe 20 seconds after the fault clearing. So which generators are going to be unstable and which will remain stable. And then how do we identify the dynamic behavior very fast? So that we discuss that we can use energy function approach, and we can take features from energy function to predict it very fast. And this energy function, uh, the features we can use it from tangent energy function. So that is like equilibrium criteria in multi-meshing case. And then dynamic security assessment and corresponding preventive control action. So here we discussed that how to predict dynamic security and then take a control actions to make it secured. Okay, so any questions so far? Any questions so far? Ganesh? Hello? Uh, Pardon, your voice is not clear. Hello? Hello?
Pratasha, are you there?
Yes. Hello?
Yeah, Pratasha, this is Bina Karmakar.
Yeah, I remember you. So,
So I got a little question means
Yeah.
say if we have more amount renewable in the system,
Mhm.
how do you think that the impedance it will affect the distance relay? Because now that current will be controlled, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
the distance relay is going to get hampered. So
yes.
how that does it affect? Means in case of power swing and all, does it at all affect the distance relay in any way? Can you just explain that one?
So these renewables are now interfaced with power electronic devices, and they don't contribute. I mean, they have some settings that their current will not exceed their ratings, right? So they
Right,
can
right.
control it very fast.
Mm-hmm.
But in case of power swing, mostly the synchronous generator will participate in those inter-area oscillations or modal oscillations, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you will still see that electromechanical oscillations and their change in the impedances, just like conventional power system. However, there will be certain changes. One change I'll just share the screen here.
Yeah, that will be good.
Uh, so, for example, you have one generator here, another generator here,
Mm-hmm.
and suppose you have some renewables here.
Right.
Okay. Now, this generator 1 and generator 2, and suppose this is PV here.
Mm.
So, they will be participating in that oscillations, right?
That's true. Yes.
Now, their characteristics will remain same. However, this current provided by this PV,
Mm.
so this is controlled very fast using the inverters here,
Yeah.
right? Now,
Mm.
if you see the distance relay, suppose it is placed here.
Mm.
So this JDR depends on your uh, this bus voltage
Mm.
divided by this current here. Okay.
Right. Right.
Now, as this generator 1 and 2 are still in this system, we will there will be still some electromechanical oscillations, and we'll see some changes in the impedance seen by the relay. But because of this infeed of this PV, it will not be exactly similar to the conventional one, but
Yes.
there will be some changes. That change is, suppose here earlier your angle difference was like this,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Now this time period is suppose uh, 4 second, and it is 0.25 hours, right?
Mm. Mm.
Now, as suppose earlier here it was a conventional generator and it has been replaced with a PV.
Okay.
So as this inertia has reduced, you may see faster oscillations. I mean, the oscillation frequency it can increase. So you may see oscillations like this, right? Now, if
Mm.
you
Maybe
see,
maybe a bit higher frequency than what you have drawn.
yeah. Now, if you calculate the R dot, right? If you just take derivative of the real part of this JDR, now as the frequency has increased, you may see higher value of R dot,
Yes.
right?
Right.
But again, we have to see the how much power is given by the renewables, and whether they are added without replacing the conventional generators, or they have replaced the conventional generators. So many factors will influence how I mean, what will be the car? I mean, R dot car we will get after the renewables are included.
Yeah,
So there
what
is no yes and no kind of answer, but
right.
yeah.
So what I suspect that if there is more amount of renewable than that the other G1 participation from the G1, there
Mhm.
may not be such oscillations. Means maybe that is damped out by those converters little bit.
Converters will not automatically damp out
But we
oscillations
don't.
unless you have some
Yes, some sort
supplementary
of
control,
control. Yeah, right, right. That's true.
right? So
Mhm.
supplementary control so far it is not in place. I don't know, at least not in India. So it
Yeah,
is still in research stage. So generally they are operating it in maximum power point
maximum
factor
power
mode.
mode or maybe power factor control mode that like that
Yeah,
only.
yes, but they are not damping. I mean, the oscillations or participating in stability controls.
Yeah, true. Yeah, nice talking you after a long time.
Yeah, so you are still in NIT Agartala, right?
No, no, no. I left NIT Jamshedpur. I was in NIT Jamshedpur. Now I am in Calcutta University.
Okay, okay, okay. Oh, I thought you were teaching in NIT Northeast, right?
No, I was in NIT Jamshedpur previously.
Okay,
I left. Now I joined University of Calcutta.
okay, okay, okay. Very good.
Good.
Okay, any other question?
I know. Maybe let other participant ask.
So thank you, Pratyas sir. Thank you very much. I think maybe some queries are there in chat box. You
Okay,
can check
let me
here
open
also.
the chat box.
That-
Okay, so that is mostly attendance link.
Actually, the arrangement for the attendance is actually I have made the Google form for each session for the attendance. I
Hmm.
used to float that link in the chat box,
Hmm.
so that's why they are
Okay.
asking for attendance.
So if there is no other question, so shall we stop the presentation now?
Yeah, yeah, sir. So once again, I formally thank you to Dr. Pratyasa Bhui, sir. I'm very much thankful to you for sparing such a valuable time with us. And definitely we will be there for the new or next any event which we will held it offline here at Bikaner or maybe somewhere else. We will meet surely. So with this, I am very much again thank you to Dr. Pratyasa Bhui sir and all the participants also. So thank you very much, Pratyasa sir. Now you may leave. Participants, you
Okay.
please be here only because this session will remain live and the next session will start at 2:30. So please be here only, or even you may leave and you may join here at 2:30. So thank you, Pratyasa
Okay.
Bhui sir,
Thank you.
once
Thank
again.
you, Professor Ganesh Prajapat.
Sir, please
Okay,
send
thank you.
attendance link.
Yes, yes, the attendance, I'll share the attendance link here only. I'm just sharing so that you could be able to record your attendance. Okay. So now I have shared the attendance link. So please record your attendance here. Since I have already told in the starting of this FDP that you have to have some specific percentage of attendance, failing which you will not be able to get the certificate. So at least you should be here in each and every session and record yourself.